Yes.
And we're back in Dolan's Dugout on a Monday night with our host, Steve Dolan, and panelist Adam Paul, and a very special guest. We have headlines. We have breaking news. We might have baseball. Are we going to be healthy enough to follow through with those plans? And our special guest, Karen Pearlman, made a return under different circumstances to beautiful La Mesa today. We're going to get the scoop and the lowdown on what's been a whirlwind of events over the last few weeks. We're still going. Steve, Adam, Karen, thank you.
Well, thank you, Moni. Thanks for having all of us. And again, we want to thank especially our special guest tonight, Karen Pearlman, East County reporter for the San Diego Union Tribune. Karen, I cannot even imagine what you've gone through as a reporter and a human being the last 3 weeks, obviously starting, unfortunately, with riots in La Mesa back at the end of May, car accident. But you're here. You're here in one piece. I'm surprised you're in one piece. Catch us up. What's been going on with you, Karen?
Here's my dog, too. My dog's okay. Okay, so I was covering the that La Mesa protest. It was just a protest, don't forget, against social injustice, police brutality, part of the Black Lives Matter movement on May 30th, which was a Saturday. And there had been a mini protest of sorts Friday night, the night before, also in La Mesa at the police department. And, basically I got there a little early, like 1:30 in the afternoon. I interviewed the guy who had organized it. His name's Casey Short, San Diego guy. The protest, sit down. The protest was really interesting. So, first it started at the police station, then everyone kind of marched around downtown area, and I followed along with everybody. And it was interesting because I had actually stopped part of the way down on University Avenue because I saw a dog in distress, because anybody who knows me knows that I'm a dog lover. So I had seen a woman with her dog in distress, and I helped the dog get some water. I actually went into the Vons that was later burnt and looted and the whole thing, but I got into the Vons to get this dog some water because it was very warm out and the dog was hyperventilating. So once I got the dog situated, I kept going back with the protesters, and that's when they headed onto the freeway at that point. So I can't remember. I want to say it was about 4 o'clock or so when we all were on the freeway. And obviously I'd never walked on the freeway before. I've run races, the UT Race for Literacy, that they used to have on the 163. That's the last time I can remember being on the freeway of any sort. So it was pretty surreal. I wasn't planning on going on the freeway, but my our photographer, Nel Cepeda, he was on the freeway, and he had called me and said, hey, come down here. There's some stuff you might want to see. So I hightailed it on the freeway with, 1,000, 2,000 others. And they had blocked off the going eastbound. I'm not sure who they is, so I can't say, but some group of protesters had gone down to, sorry, my dog keeps moving. They blocked off the freeway so that cars couldn't come in from around Spring Street, and walked down the freeway. I talked to some CHP. One of the CHP officers I talked to was from Palm Springs, which I was surprised about because I'm like, wow. They got people from, not San Diego here. They've got outside people coming in to help. So we walked on the freeway, and it was pretty interesting. We came back, and the photographer and I actually took a shortcut. So most people were heading back the way they came. But because we kind of know the back routes, we went up a different way and ended up at the police station before most of the people got back. So we kind of situated ourselves to get ready. And about 5 o'clock, everybody was back. And at that point, I felt like a change. Like there was a vibe change in what was happening there. It had become a lot more vocal. People were yelling a lot of, let's say, swear words, and directing it at the police officers who had, at that point, started coming out of the police station. And I was pretty far back, so I couldn't see, but evidently they had been out in riot gear, just in case things got out of hand. And at that point, I guess it did get out of hand. I was in another parking lot across the street, within view of the police station, writing my story on deadline. I was trying to get everything finished. So there was one tear gas that had been let out at that point from the top of the police station. And I could see over at the police station, there was graffiti all over it. And like just more and more and more people writing all sorts of things on the side of the police station. So I had finished my story by then. I sent it to the editor, who was, my editor for that day. And I was just kind of watching things as they went on. I had interviewed people all day long, so I had all the people that I needed for quotes and kind of got a feel for what was happening. And about 5:30, an armored tank actually came right near where my car was in the parking lot. So it was coming up and down a side street from Allison Avenue that runs parallel to Spring Street. I can't remember the name of the street, but it has a driveway that turns into City Hall's parking lot and the police station's parking lot. And it used to have the farmer's market was there. So my car was in that parking lot and the armored tank was coming up and down, and people surrounded this tank and started wailing these huge boulders, like massive, 5-10 pound boulders, just wailing on it. And it was kind of plowing its way up and down the street kind of, and just throwing, and they smashed the window of the tank, and we're hitting the side of it. Those are things that are made to take a lot of, it's a battle car, right? So it wasn't very well, and eventually it left. So at this point, I was going. Well, actually, sorry, I should back up. So before it left, it also threw out a big thing of tear gas. So I was right next to that one, and I had been affected by the first one, but this one was really bad because it was so close to me. And I actually went into my car and put on recirculate in the car and put on the air conditioning so that I could breathe some air from inside the car, rolled up the windows. And the photographer actually came up to my car not long after that, threw his stuff on my hood, and knocked on my window and asked me to roll it down, and he needed some water right away. So I gave him a bottle of water.
Oh, no.
No. Oh. Okay. We're going to bring Karen back. If she can hear me, I'm going to type in private chat. Just go in and come back again.
Amazing,
The climax. What's the climax?
Isn't it amazing, though, what she's telling, the stories she's telling from that night? It's one thing to hear about it or read about it, but to hear it from somebody who was there, I just can't even imagine being in something like that.
Oh, my gosh. And, just the way she told it afterwards. And, the funny thing is, I think we can ask her still, but, a lot of the action started to happen, I'm sure, as deadline came, which I would think is going to be about 8:45 to 9 o'clock. I'm sure it could have been extended for her. And PJ's giving me here comes Karen. Oh, God.
Here I am.
We were just telling the story for you. Pick up where you were. We were just telling the story.
So the photographer took the water that I gave him and splashed it in his face. Now, this photographer had been embedded twice with the troops in Afghanistan. So he is no stranger to warfare, which is kind of what it was getting like there. People had been screaming and running. I heard big bangs. I didn't know what was going on. I guess at that time it was those rubber bullets or the beanbag rounds, whatever you want to call them. And it was just like mayhem over there. It was just kind of craziness. So I got in my car at that point. He ran into an MTS bus that was sitting there. And they let him in so he could get some air. And then I waited for him to come back out. And I called my editor. It was about 6:30 at that point. I'm like, I feel really unsafe here because that tank that had been, and just people were screaming and yelling, and it just got really crazy. So I left around 6:30. I went home, and I was still kind of on the clock. And, at that point, I knew things were getting kind of bad. So all night long, people were texting me and sending me video. I was watching live footage of how bad it got. There was obviously the looting and the fires, and it got so crazy after I left. But it really affected me. I think I've maybe slept not till 3 o'clock in the morning because I was actually in touch with the other reporters who had come after after me to replace me. And the photographer who was still there, he got there, when I did, and he probably left there at 3 a.m. So it was like a, 15-hour day for him. So that was pretty devastating for me, because I've covered La Mesa for the newspaper, the Union Tribune, for 10 years. And, before then, on and off, doing different things in the sports department at the Union Tribune, and for 10 years before then at the Daily Californian. So like all my cities, I'm very connected with them, as you probably know. So watching what happened in La Mesa was so, it was just devastating to me. And any of my cities it would have happened to. And I would say, not that I don't care about other cities. I mean, and I live in San Diego. So like, not that I don't care about what happens, but because I'm so connected to my cities, the fact that happened in La Mesa was so, it gave me anxiety and stress for a while after it. Just really hard to forget the images of what I saw. And even though like the next day everybody was there cleaning up, I could not go over there and cover that. I could not bring myself to go and watch what had happened. I mean, Chase Bank that burnt down, that was my bank when I lived in La Mesa. I lived in La Mesa for 8 years. And that was the first bank where I had an account in La Mesa. So like seeing that it had burnt down, and the Union Bank and the Randall Lamb building that I knew when it was a washing machine and electric equipment stuff like were sold there. And I think it was something else. And the farmer's market used to be behind that building years and years ago.
Yeah.
So like all these things and all these businesses that I know that played against sports, the Sally Beauty Supply, there's a Pizza Hut, the Vons. I've shopped in at Vons so many times. It was like really hard for me. I used to live above that area on Lemon, and so I overlooked all those stores for years when I lived there. So like it was devastating.
Well, I know.
So
yeah. No, I was gonna say, I obviously couldn't go to sleep that night. I was so riveted watching everything on live Facebook, which was actually better than anything that the actual news broadcast showed that evening.
And where were the outlets?
I mean, well, I actually had a couple of my friends were actually down there, trying to help, but it was an absolute war zone basically.
It was.
Honestly, they could have had all the police down there. They were not. I mean, they probably would not have stopped any of that, in my opinion.
I don't know how you could have, because there was 2,000 people, at the protest, and then I think a lot of those people left, and some agitators came in.
Yeah,
I really believe that there was not the same people that were protesting, and they were there with weapons, and they were there with destruction in mind. That was not true of the protesters. So they were, I think the police, I don't excuse them not, getting out there, but I don't blame them. And the firemen, the firefighters, that's so like 1970, sorry, firefighters, they were afraid to go out there too because of the threat of violence. So they couldn't even go, even though they're like 2 blocks away from the bank and 3 blocks away from Randall Lamb, and they were basically not able to go out and fight those fires because their lives could have been endangered. I mean, don't forget also we had the COVID thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
We've got that still. So, you're also putting yourself in danger of being out. I stayed away from people mostly. I had my mask on the entire time. And I except for walking with people during the protest marching, I didn't get close to anybody. I didn't really get close. There's some of the footage. That's good. I mean, it's not good. It's bad. I mean, that's where I had been. That Vons is where I was earlier in the day to get the water for the dog.
No.
Like, it's crazy watching that happen. I took photos of the marchers in front of Chase. I have photos of the Chase when it was still up. It was crazy.
Well,
It was a night like I just will never forget. And it just crushed me. And I think it's always going to crush me. I was saying that, I lost both of my parents over the last, a little over 10 years. And I lost my sister to cancer also, all three of them. And this was right up there with losing my family members. This night was right up there as far as tragic in my life.
Now, Karen, in follow-up, though, there's been a lot of good things that have happened in La Mesa. I mean, talk a little bit about that in the follow-up the last 3 weeks.
So, I was saying, like, Sunday, I could not bring myself to go. But Monday, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check it out. And there were artists that were painting murals on a lot of the buildings that had been damaged. So they were boarding up windows and doors. And on the boarded up windows and doors, muralists had come. There's a guy that had gotten a bunch of people together, and they started painting. So it started looking really good. All the people come out early in the morning, like 6, 7 in the morning on Sunday, just like 3 or 4 hours after kind of the looting stuff had ended, and started sweeping and cleaning and making, trying to make clean what was so messed up. So the community really came out in force that morning to start cleaning everything up. And then the muralists kind of came and were painting. So all week long, it was like people were working together. But there was always a threat that, they might come back, these agitators, because, what had initially led to all the protesting was not just George Floyd in Minnesota, who was murdered on Memorial Day, but there was that trolley stop in Grossmont of the young black man who was stopped by a white officer, and I think there was 3 other officers with him.
Yes.
And the camera footage caught some stuff going down that looks like not necessary roughness, let's just say. And so people were unhappy with the way that the La Mesa Police Department had treated this young man. And, a few years ago, there was a girl at Helix High School, a senior, and she had been pushed down by a La Mesa police officer that worked on campus. So people hadn't forgotten about that either. But anyway, getting back to the cleanup. So the cleanup all week long, there were murals, and they're still painting murals and things like that on a lot of the boarded up buildings. So that was really nice to see. A lot of groups got together and, started putting out, positive positive vibes about, getting La Mesa together again. Some Facebook groups started called La Mesa Strong, where they came up and basically we're telling people, come here and we're going to work together and bring businesses back. I know El Cajon City Councilman Phil Ortiz started a GoFundMe with the East County Chamber to raise money for a lot of these businesses that had been so badly ruined. Either, were looted and stolen from, or the windows were bashed in, basically destroyed, businesses in different ways.
And because I know Barry, I saw Barry Jantz, our good friend, promoted that on Facebook, and I noticed the amount they had set was, I think, $100,000 or something.
I think they were up to 200.
No, I know, but starting out, it was
right. Yeah. Well, the
really
original,
modest.
they were trying to get 50,000. Yeah. And they got that right away.
Yeah, and it went up to like 200,000 in like a couple of days. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, I think, people felt bad about, how bad that it had gotten out of hand, basically, that it had gotten so violent and so, fires and just really terrifying for a lot of people. But, that area downtown, a lot of people live near there. It's kind of a work business and residential area together. So, people watched it from their houses, and they, it was terrifying for a lot of people. So I think, bringing, a GoFundMe to let the residents say, hey, and even people not from La Mesa saying, what can we do to help bring the businesses back to their, previous glory.
Karen, how are the businesses bouncing back? I know it's only been 3 weeks, but is there progress going on with them, or what's happening as far as
I think so. When I was down there today, because I was down there to cover something else, I drove down La Mesa Boulevard just to have a look. I know they're bringing the farmers market back. It's coming on Friday again. They have the weekly farmers market that was closed because of COVID, but I think now they're able to kind of do the social distancing and let those farmers come and set up their stands and whatever. So that's one way. I think a lot of the businesses are still trying to get back together again, what they lost. I spoke to a restaurant that had the window bashed in. They're almost getting ready back to open again. There's the Play It Again Sports in the shopping center, La Mesa Springs, is kind of put out the word that he's hoping people will start donating items so he can open up again. I actually go ahead. Sorry.
Didn't one story of remorse have a gentleman bringing back some of the equipment that he stole?
I saw that too. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if a lot of those. I wonder if a lot of those amateur looters out there had some regret.
Well, yes. No, go. I was gonna say for Play Against Sports on Wednesday, Rock 105.3 is having a big donation drive for them from 6 to 10, I believe, or
That's
something
great.
like that, for donating the gently used equipment there.
Nice. Yeah, they're trying to. I mean, I went in the week that I went to see the murals. I talked to the guy, the owner. He let me in the building, and I said, was anything salvageable? He goes, I lost $200,000 worth of merchandise. So not only things that were stolen, but since the fire was started in there, the sprinklers came on. Yeah. And so he's like, new things that I had are now used. He goes, some of the brand new things that I had that were ruined by the water damage, I'm going to sell as used now. But basically he lost, $250,000 worth of items. So, and that's a really big store. I don't know if you've been in there, but it's ginormous.
Yeah.
And it was empty when I was in there.
I'm trying to interrupt, Karen. I see PJ's asking a question about possibly rebuilding of the Union Bank or the Chase Bank or Randall Lamb. I mean, I know those were three of the other places. Damn. Any news on what's going on there yet? With the banks?
I have not heard yet. I know people were asking me about that. I haven't seen what's going on with that, but when I went by there today, it just looked the same. There's a fence around them, and kids and others have put art along the fence, but I haven't seen any changes in there. I believe that the people who have stuff in safety deposit boxes have been able to get their stuff, or will be able to get their stuff out of there, that those were protected. But I don't know what the ETA is on rebuilding any of that, and I'm not sure what Randall Lamb is going to do either. That was a historical building, so it's actually really sad. There's no replacing that, obviously.
Karen, was there any bit of closure today? A joyous occasion out in La Mesa today, flying the pride flag, and a lot of people out there with a lot of good vibes?
Yeah, it was good. It was really nice to see the mayor. He's taken a lot of heat. Dr. A has taken some heat from people because, what's hard for people to understand is, they're calling for the police chief to be fired. Well, the mayor doesn't have that say. That's a city manager decision. And the city manager is hired by the city council. So it's like a hierarchy. So, they're like, why didn't you fire the police chief and, fire the police officer that, pushed the kid down at it's not a kid, but the young man down at the trolley station. Well, the mayor can't do all that. That's not his, jurisdiction to do that. It's not in his job description. So it's been very hard, and he's super connected with La Mesa. So he's a local hometown boy, does good. He went to Rolando and La Mesa Middle School and Helix. So for him, he's had a very hard time over the last few weeks dealing with this. I've seen him and I've talked to him. So it was so nice to see him out there today. They raised the gay pride flag, rainbow flag. At the urging of Dave Myers, who was a one-time city council candidate in La Mesa, and he was on the sheriff's department for a while, San Diego County Sheriff. He has been urging the city to put up the flag, and they did today. I think it was actually up earlier, like a week or so ago, but they had a ceremony for us. About 100 people showed up, and the mayor was there. A couple city council members were there. City manager and the new assistant city manager that just got hired last week was there. Even Art Madrid, the old mayor, was there. Yeah. Saw him. That was pretty fun. I hadn't seen him in a while. And it got about 100 people were hanging out, dogs, and everybody. There were Black Lives Matter people there. I saw with shirts. Nobody had a sign, but there were people there that were definitely had messages on their shirts of different kind, a lot of rainbow colors and flags and things like that. So because June is Gay Pride Month, or LGBTQ Pride Month, I'm not sure exactly the right name of it, but we only got like a week left before June is over, but better late than never.
Hey, Karen, another story that's coming out of La Mesa, because you mentioned Helix. I noticed John Maffey has in the sports section that one of their football players tested positive for COVID, so I guess they're having to stop practice now.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah,
that's
it happened the other day.
Broke that story.
Wow.
Yeah, we heard about it the other day. Interesting though, he didn't get it while he was at football practice though. It was outside of Helix.
Oh my God.
Wow. The kids are gonna hang with each other, do things, and I don't know. It's really scary.
I'll say I had no idea about that. That's terrible. Wasn't it somebody? Was it on the Tampa Bay, or who was it on a pro football team? That someone.
We had several community outbreaks in a couple of the leagues right now, and I think that's why when I kind of teased us and let us off, and I said, really the big headline of the moment, other than Karen appearing on this show, is the fact, Steve, that baseball has come to there's a plan now. As about 90 minutes, a couple hours ago, there's a plan, but how can we move forward with this plan? We're having community outbreaks of COVID all over the country. We still know it's going to be there. It's still going to affect that same small percentage, but it just kind of coincides with the fact that we just started going back out a little bit more and everything. And Karen, that key chart that you like to look at in the UT, that really, even throughout this little spell, until this little spike was still going down under 3%, all of a sudden spiked up today.
Yesterday too. I think yesterday was like 7% or 10%.
So that's what people can talk about testing or whatever. There's more testing going on, so we're having bigger numbers. But there's no doubt it's been for all the positivity over the last month or whatever. We've almost erased it in about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it's been. I'll tell you, when I was out there with those protesters in La Mesa on the 30th. So, and I got hit with the tear gas twice. Later that week, I started getting a bad sore throat, and I got stuffy. I didn't have a fever, but I'm going, chances are, I could have been around somebody. So I actually did get a COVID test, and I tested negative. I got it on a Thursday, and it came back on Monday. And I was very happy about that, because I thought, good chance of getting it with all those people there. There's like 1,000 to 2,000 people, and people are out. Not everyone's wearing masks. I want to tell you about something that I covered on Saturday, where everybody had a mask on, which was like, for me, I can relax a little bit, because it's one thing for me to have the mask on, but when other people don't, it just makes it like one step closer to getting it. And I was really, Moni, what you were saying, very upset when I saw the numbers going up, but not surprised, because around the world, around the country, when things kind of lighten up a little bit, people don't think it's still there, and it's still there, and it's troubling. Like, you still have to do the same things we were doing several months ago. Just because things are opening up does not mean it's over.
Let me ask Karen, you and Moni both, because Moni's our expert on COVID. It sounds like a lot more young people are getting COVID, and I think part of it is young people. They've been stuck inside for so long. You look at like college football, for instance. 30 players at LSU, 13 at Texas. Kansas State shut down for 14 days. So it sounds like a lot of it is going to the younger generation. I just wonder if that's because of maybe the things they're doing, and maybe even part of it's because of the protests. It's younger people. I'm not saying that's the whole reason, but it just seems like maybe they're the ones who are getting out more. Maybe there should be a warning for them. Hey, just because you're in your 20s or 30s doesn't mean you're immune to it.
Yeah, and if you look at the numbers, Moni, you're the expert. If you look at the numbers, it doesn't back up that only people 70 and over are getting hit with this. There's, a lot of young. I remember seeing, I haven't looked at the numbers lately very closely, but there was a lot between 20 and 29 and 30 and 39 that were, coming down with it. Not so many deaths, but that actually had, the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus. Troubling.
And there's one small argument that could be made that as the spike, right? This is a spike. As the spike continues or it happens again, that the mortality rate may actually be still steady or dwindling. Like maybe it's not as strong, but it's still going to be prevalent. And of course, as more people might get it, including younger people, unfortunately, we're still dealing with the mortality rate that happens in those at-risk demographics. So I don't want to say there's a fizzle effect here because we're seeing a spike, we're seeing increased numbers. There was talk about how this last push of statistics kind of shows that about 1/3 of all new cases were in the state of California. And obviously we're having a real rough time out here in San Diego, in the South Bay, and even starting out east. I think if you look at these numbers, this is probably the worst moment of COVID for the East County is right about now, since the pandemic has started, unfortunately. And,
have you been looking at the zip codes? Have you been watching the zip codes?
Yeah, but I think also that, because we're testing more, we're finding out, the numbers are going up. Honestly, I don't know. I just, they keep saying, oh, yeah, we're going to have to wait for a vaccine. But honestly, with everything I'm hearing, you hear conflicting information, about every single day. I watched a guy the other day on one of the news stations. There was a study recently published in a scientific journal, Nature, a Nature research journal, that said that people under 18 and under are less likely to get sick from COVID. It's not that they can't contract it, but they're like the smallest percentage of the population to get it. And the gentleman was saying there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to go back to schools because, if they were to close down the schools, they would have to close the schools for COVID from, what did he say? February to June. Well, schools can't afford that.
No.
I mean, we're already going to have budget cuts coming up. I mean, and all the, the various expenses that all these school districts and other entities are having to spend to try and, keep up with what's going, the safety measures. It's just, they got to figure out something. Unfortunately, I don't foresee a vaccine in our future, but so they're going to have to figure out something.
Well, I hope you're wrong about that. I'd like to see a vaccine.
There's been talk. I mean, I think some of the top health experts have talked about opening up.
No, go ahead.
Adam, these are the top health experts in the country, and there are several different types. There's different projects, different vaccines, and stuff like that. But I just was going to say, getting away from the technical stuff because I don't even understand it. I just read it all. But the movement from we're opening and we're starting up sports. Steve teases me because I'm up watching Korean baseball and soccer from all these countries in the middle of the night because I love these sports. And as positive as I've started to feel, because even today, with the news of the baseball getting some terms to come back, you see the reports in college football. You see the reports in baseball and other sports. I've actually become, just over the last maybe 48 to 72 hours, more upset that maybe sports is not going to be coming back even on a local level. I don't want to alarm anybody right now, but it's June 22nd. And if we're supposed to be making decisions by July 7th on calendars for this year.
I've already said it. I've already said the prep sports probably won't come back because of what's going on, because you have people making, and like I said, you don't want to be an alarmist, but in all reality, because of what happened with the kid at Helix and everything going on in the South Bay, how can they play? How can they?
Because Adam, here's why, and I'm not going to belittle the point at all. Karen's our guest, so it's not about what I think. But this is just one isolated incident among several hundred isolated incidents that continue to happen in an enormously large population base. Nobody's going back, Karen. Nobody's going back inside in any part of this country unless you get something like New York happening again.
Right. Yep. Agree.
Yeah,
well,
Moni, let me go back to something, because we've touched on it a couple times here. We've mentioned a couple times about Major League Baseball. We just mentioned it, but let me get real specific on what it is that today the players turned down the owner's proposal. But what it looks like is going to happen is that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, is going to have a 60-game season starting July 24th. Right now, there are two factors that need to be met and agreed to on the players. Of course, number one is what we're talking about, is the whole COVID. That's number one. And number two is that the players would all be able to be in their spring training by July 1st, which, if you do the math, is 9 days from now, next Wednesday. And just so people know, every team right now except Toronto will train in its own ballpark. The reason Toronto won't do it is because you get into the whole thing with, can you get in and out of Canada? And obviously, the players, right, they're not Canadian. I mean, they're a Canadian team, but the players are not from Canada. So anyway, that's the framework. Just so people know, that's the framework that we're talking about. Now, what's going to happen, we don't know. And again, COVID's going to have a lot to do with it, but that is what's been decided on by Major League Baseball today.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, can they come to terms with this? I mean, you're concerned about the health as we all are, and there are going to be plenty of players in all the sports with cold feet. Sure.
If I'm a player, I don't even know how I get over the fear that, I'm, in a locker room with somebody, I'm standing next to somebody who's, at first base, got a hit, and they're, the coach is in the first base box, and people, it's like, how do you get over being that close to people and in a sports situation like that? All the different ways that they come in contact with one another. A catcher and the umpire behind him. I mean, like all these different things that,
I don't know, Karen. You just covered a bunch of protests. I mean,
I don't know if this will happen at the pro level, but I've been watching on Twitter some of the video footage of softball tournaments outside of California, and the umpire, this is to answer your question, the umpire standing about 5 or 6 feet, 6 or 7 feet behind the catcher. Well, how the heck are you supposed to call a game that way? You can't.
They might as well go to like the Fox. The Fox does the.
Yeah, the Fox. Exactly, Karen. They talked about the robot.
They wanted robot umpires. Karen solved it.
Okay. I mean, like right now, what else do you do? Like, does an umpire want to go stand that far and have every call questioned, because how could you possibly see the movement of the ball when it crosses the plate from that far back? You can't.
And that's what I was laughing at the first time I saw this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, did I just see what I just saw? I mean, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's ask our Korean baseball expert, Moni. I'm going to get on you. What are the umpires doing there in the Korean baseball? Because I know you.
The umpires have to wear a mask. The umpires have to wear a mask, but no one else does. The umpire wears mask and gloves. Stands right behind right behind. There was talk, and I should have looked at this. I didn't know we were going to get on this path, but there was talk that the San Diego League, that collegiate baseball league playing out at Christian, was going to have the umpires kind of calling it like we used to do in caps from behind the pitcher's mound. I didn't get a chance to see, Adam, if you've seen it. They've had some of their games on YouTube, but I forgot to check on that.
I haven't seen that either. I'm sorry. I really can't speak on that. But I think if they're want to try the robot umpire deal,
this should be the time, right?
This would be the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're talking baseball. What about football? I mean, not only how close they are on the field, but my gosh, I've been in those football locker rooms, like even in the NFL, but especially college, you got 80, 90 players jammed into a locker room. I mean, that's going to be an issue.
wherever you have, groups of people, this is going to be an issue. So you just have to determine how big of groups you can let people get together. I mean, that's why we don't have fans in stadiums. PJ asked, will there be fans in MLB? Not in the beginning. There certainly won't be.
No. I think what I think will happen is, because I was watching the race, the NASCAR race.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk about that.
Well, yeah, let me. And this was the first race that they actually allowed actual fans in the stands. They had 5,000 people, and it was pretty interesting. They were all spaced out or whatever. And of course, obviously, what happened with Bubba Wallace, and in the beginning, they, everybody was following Mr. Wallace, along the track and everything, which was really cool sight to see. But yeah, no, I think is they're gonna, baseball and these other sports will slowly, include fans into the games, I think.
Really, with what you're saying, with this spike,
they just had 5,000 people at a NASCAR race.
Okay, I'm just saying, Karen was just saying, look out, the catcher's next to the umpire. That's two people.
I understand that.
Yeah, we just had these protests where it's okay. I don't want to. It's that's the political argument, I guess, right? I have no business in that one. Do we wear masks or not? I mean, I hate that it's a political argument. It should be a no-brainer.
I mean, I said, the people in the stands were wearing the masks and stuff. And, it worked out fine. I mean, heck, when the movie theaters open up next month, I'm going to go to the movie theaters, wear my mask. I mean,
yeah. Well,
Karen,
I tell you, I was definitely scared in La Mesa at that protest, and not just from the tear gas and from the violence, but, the being so close to everyone, and people are screaming and running, and, they're spraying their germs all over, right? So, there's these things that are, just as an aside really quickly. So tomorrow I have 2 city council meetings, right? I have El Cajon at 3 and La Mesa at 6, part of what I do for my job. And I asked the mayor from El Cajon, Bill Wells, yesterday. I sent him a text. I'm like, hey, are we going to be in the, live at the city hall, And he said, not yet. So, and these meetings, people sit close to each other. I mean, even if you sit like a few seats apart, you're indoors. There's just a lot of, touching the same things, and there's bathrooms that people are using, a public bathroom. So there's just a lot of concerns about being safe. And he said, no, not yet, which I was disappointed, because I miss going to my meetings. Like, the Zoom thing gets really old after a while.
No, I asked Laura Cobalt from Santee about that. Yeah. I asked her, when do you think, live meetings would take place? And she was like, oh, probably not for a while.
Yeah. I had gotten a text from one of the regulars at the El Cajon City Council meetings, a guy who comes in with his therapy dog. And he said, oh, maybe I'll see you Tuesday at the meeting. And I thought, well, okay. And that's when I texted Bill Wells, and I'm like, what's going on? Because I thought maybe this guy knew something I didn't. And he's like, no. I think people are, hoping that, they can meet again, because, there are people who don't have internet. Mm-hmm. There are people who don't want to watch on a video screen. They want to be there in person. They want to speak in front of the city council at like a podium, and they don't want to write in a letter or email a letter to the city and have it read by the city clerk, which is how things are done right now.
Yeah, because
there's something about being there,
Yeah, as you know, if you or I were writing a letter in, the tone isn't the same,
Right. It's like, it's like you text somebody. You can text them like a funny thing, and it looks really insulting to somebody else, It just, you can't hear the voice inflection. You can't tell, are you joking? Are you
That's why I have no friends. I'm a crummy texter.
It's hard to tell, right? Like, sometimes people are, angry, and it doesn't come across as it that way. Right. I mean, friendships have ended over things, like, not understood how you meant something, and so being in person, Like I've heard hundreds of letters read at city council meetings from people, and you can't tell, like, are they being sarcastic, or are they the person reading the letter is just reading it, the words, so, but like the person who would be the letter writer, if they were speaking it, you would definitely be able to tell, their intention.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk really quickly, Steve, if you don't mind, because I was mentioning this earlier. So on Saturday, something that I covered, if you don't mind, if I go back to,
yeah, go ahead.
I like the sports thing too. And I really want to talk about Jimmy Johnson and Bubba. So like, can we get back to that too? Remind me. Cause it's like El Cajon, man, Mr. Crest. Love him. I was just looking the other day at my pictures from a couple years ago. Saw your
picture.
Yeah. I loved it when he was in El Cajon, and, I normally don't get starstruck, but I have to say I was pretty starstruck. He's like so cool. Anyway,
he got screwed today. If you watch the race,
I didn't watch the race. I only know about what happened.
He got screwed. I'm not gonna yell at any other drivers right now. We're in a feel-good mode, but
Jim, talk about Jimmy though in El Cajon. Yeah, I like that story. What
were you covering on Saturday in La Mesa?
Yeah, what were you covering Saturday?
Let's go there just for a second. So there, because of what I went through in La Mesa, I'm kind of taking myself off the protest beat for a little while because they're very hard.
Don't blame you.
Although I know that one was the worst, and they haven't been like that since then. I have kind of just like automatically, like, I don't want to cover that right now. Like I can't. So I covered this hour of prayer. So all across the county, 11 different places, the Rock Church, based out of Point Loma, but they have places all over, kind of organized this prayer event from 9 to 10 in the morning. And so I went out to the former Four Corners of Death, now called the Four Corners of Life, which is Imperial and Euclid Avenues in Southeast San Diego. And it was like that because in the 80s and 90s, it was like a big gang area, a lot of fighting. So there's like 400 something people at this event that I went to, and there were 10 other places throughout the county that had thousands of people, hundreds at each one, where they just took an hour to pray, which was really cool. So praying about, ending COVID, and praying for, find a vaccine, and praying for end to the racial, injustices, and praying for no more of this looting and violence, in response to the whatever protests bring on some people that have another reason for being out there. So it was just so kind of cool to be part of that. And the one that I went to, actually, Miles McPherson, who leads the Rock Church, he was there. And I had never met him in person. I've seen him many times on interviews and videos, and he's a former Charger. Are we Chargers fans still? I don't know.
I'm the only one, I think.
I like the Chargers still. Anyway, he got on the bullhorn with some other faith leaders and kind of got the crowd ready for the hour of prayer. And then he came after the hour was done and spoke again. It was really moving. And I spoke to quite a few people there. And what I was going to say also about this was like 99% of the people wore masks at this event. And I was so heartened by that. And so I thought I was going to ask, there was actually a woman selling masks. She had set up a little booth over there. Different kinds of masks. She had t-shirts and other stuff too. So I asked her, what are you doing here? Like, it's like a vendor here at this prayer thing. She's like, our community has been so affected by, COVID-19 that she's selling them for like nothing and giving them away too. I just want our community to be protected because we're so, there's a lot of them in that zip code. So she was trying to do her best to get everybody to wear masks, and really almost everybody did. And I was so heartened by that. It just made me feel, because I told you, like the protests that I covered in La Mesa and I had gone to Santee. There were these people that were protecting the businesses down in Santee, and people were not wearing masks. And it was like, just, it upset me and it worries me, because basically, you wear the masks not necessarily for you, but for other people. You're wearing them to protect other people. And so I was heartened that at this prayer thing, people wore masks, and it was really beautiful to watch people praying in different languages and in their own way. Some of them, were very charismatic. Some of them were really quiet. They sat in chairs or on the ground or stood. It was just a really beautiful event, and I was so glad I got to cover that. It just made me feel like it was a positive to write about, because I've been writing so many things that are, stressful and negative, just because there's so much unrest right now in the world, and with health and people that haven't been treated fairly. It's like very heartening to cover something that was a feel-good story. I needed it for myself. I was telling the PR person for it, like, that actually helped me. Like, and I had spoken to somebody there who was a very charismatic woman about just why she was there. And, she's like, you're covering this for a reason. And I said, you're probably right. And as you guys may know, I had been in a car accident on June 11th that my car was totaled. A young woman ran a stop sign in Ocean Beach, and I couldn't stop in time. And my car got smashed pretty bad, and my airbag did not deploy. And I slammed into the steering wheel, and I have a lot of pain, and nothing broke, but just very painful for the last couple of weeks since that happened. So I bought a new used car, which is good. And the most important thing is that my dog was all right, because she was with me in the front seat, but she was in the passenger seat, and her airbag actually did deploy. So, it's just been a really rough couple of weeks for me. So, like, going to that prayer event actually helped me.
They had a lot of people in the Santee portion of that too.
Yeah. There were 1,300 people were, I think, at Mission Bay, and 1,200 something were at college. I think Santee had 800 or something. Yeah. There was one in San Carlos area, not far from me, that had a few hundred people, including Bill Wells was there at that one, from the mayor of El Cajon. And I believe Dr. A from La Mesa was going to be there too. And Steve Voss was at one, the mayor of Poway, that in Carmel Mountain Ranch, that had like 850 people. And I interviewed him too about what happened at his. So it drew like 7,000 people, plus 8,000 more, they said, were watching either on Facebook or Instagram.
Wow.
Hey guys, Karen needs to start a new bumper sticker collection. Their legendary car. If you have things for the back of a car, like peace signs, peace love, 70s, Ruby, Chicago Cubs. Anything to Karen the Union Tribune. We're gonna get her started on a.
How about old school San Diego State?
What's that? Yeah, I had a San Diego State bumper sticker on there.
Old school San Diego State.
I did.
Karen Pearlman, Karen the Union Tribune. Send your stickers for that new used car that she has. If you saw her old car, and anybody who follows her on Twitter, anybody on Facebook, anybody who's following her car around town knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very. People knew I was there with that car, so now I'm kind of incognito.
Karen, when that happened, bystanders were there. Yeah. Did anyone recognize you at that moment?
No.
Okay.
I go to OB a lot for the sunsets and whatever, but I think maybe I'm a little bit of a known entity in East County, but in the beach area, I don't think they know me, which is just as well. I actually had some interesting conversations with the people who saw the accident, and it was kind of cool. Nobody knew who I was. Not like I'm a celebrity or anything, but I was.
I saw that a selfie of you with some bystanders.
It was nice to have people like they didn't know who I was or what I did. It didn't matter. All they knew is I was in this accident. It was really cool. I had these like good Samaritans that were the guy that was driving behind me when it happened. He lived around the corner. He parked his car and came back over. A woman who lived in the house on the corner came out, and then a woman who had been walking her dog who saw the whole thing. She became a witness for the whole situation with the insurance companies and whatever. They all stayed with me. So one my dog while I was dealing with everything. She took Chloe and watched over her. The guy helped me figure out what to do because I was kind of in a state of shock. So he was like walking me through, like, call your insurance, call AAA if you need a tow. Here's what to get from the other driver. Take photos. I mean, he was like walking me through it because I was seriously not all there. And the other woman called the police like twice. The fire department came, took my pulse and my blood pressure. It was just like so weird. It was surreal. It was like I've covered these kinds of things before, but here I was actually the person going through it. So hang on, I'm losing power on my computer, so I need to go plug it in. But
well, we're glad you're okay because we don't want you to become part of the story in a bad way.
Sorry.
Yeah, Karen, are you okay now? We know Karen. Hey, if we can keep you, Karen, I know we're losing her, but Karen, you and Chloe also have some guests there with you right now. Don't you have some guests in town, little Lila and stuff?
I have my families here. They're back there. They're saying hello.
Oh, is everybody there? Hi.
Hold on, there's a bunch of people around.
Yeah, get that mask on, Moni. Let me see.
One of the dogs right here, Rascal. I don't know where the other dog is, but
these are Chloe's cousins.
Where's Lila? Is Lila there? Where's Lila?
She's sleeping right now.
Oh, darn.
Baby.
Tell us, who is Lila? How old is Lila?
She is born April 17th, I believe. Oh, gosh.
Wow.
And look, we lost her. And I was just about to say, guys, that might be the end of the show if we don't get her back. But I was just about to ask Karen about that obvious 1970s circa Patrick Henry Patriots T-shirt.
Yeah.
She'll be right back.
Okay, we'll give her a second. I don't know. We can. Steve, I expect you're expecting a notice tomorrow, maybe from Fox Sports, if they can figure out any type of timetable. Also, Adam, we're going to find out a lot about the California state system probably within the next 24 hours as well, and the future of Division I college sports in California. And I don't think the news is going to be very positive, but I'm crossing my fingers. I think that there's going to be some influence on what's happened over the last over this weekend. This huge spike, Adam.
They won't make a decision on the California system until July 17th.
Yeah.
And but as what's going on right now, it doesn't look good.
No.
I mean, Division II's already kind of said, right? So the structure in Division I, Steve, is pretty much the same, right? If Division II is kind of already.
Yeah, although now they're saying that there'll be more students on. They're saying now at San Diego State that like 24% of the students will come to campus at some time. On Sunday's paper, I thought Nick Hannaford's column was very accurate. I mean, I've known Nick for too many years, but his column basically said we may not have pro sports again this year, any sports again this year. And I know that Nick, I agree with what Nick was saying. I hope he's wrong, but again, and you were talking about like with Fox Sports, we haven't heard anything yet. We know we're released from everything through the end of June, but that's a given. We don't know. There's Karen, but hopefully we'll be back live. But Karen, we're gonna have to let you go here in a minute. We've about hit our hour, but we want to thank you so much
I'm
for being
back now. I had to re-plug in, and then I lost my earplug. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, Karen.
Hold on. Give me time.
We're pretty much at our end now for tonight, Karen. Karen, we wanted to ask you something. We wanted to have you come back every couple of weeks with us. Would that be okay?
I'd love that. I'd actually love that. Can I ask you? I wanted to hear you guys' take on the Jimmy Johnson thing before I go.
Yes, I wanted to comment on that. You started us off, Karen.
No, I want to hear what you guys have to say about it because I only heard a little bit about it, and I want to know what you guys think about it. It's pretty cool from what I could tell.
Yeah, do you want me to brief everybody on it?
Yes.
As the race was starting today, they had a rain delay yesterday at Talladega. This is really the biggest track, one of the biggest tracks going. And just as they were going to race today, and there was another little bit of a rain delay. But before the race, all the drivers and teams escorted Bubba Wallace and his car up to the front of the pack. And anybody who saw the cool picture on Twitter or during the broadcast, Bubba Wallace, who took a selfie with basically the entire NASCAR organization positioned behind him, taking that picture from the front of his car, Adam.
Yeah, no, it was actually really awesome. He drives for Richard Petty, the king of NASCAR, and Petty gave him a big hug, and he fully supports Bubba Wallace, and Jimmy Johnson. He like you say, he's such a cool guy. With all his philanthropic entities and everything that he does for us here in San Diego, and whatnot. He kind of led that whole charge along with Bubba Wallace, and as Moni alluded, he kind of got in the race. Unfortunately, crashed with about 3 or 4 laps to go.
No.
He should have won.
Oh no!
Yeah, but it's interesting what you say about Richard Petty too. About that. Bubba Wallace races with his crew because Richard Petty now, of course, is 82 years old, and it was just very emotional what was done today. And the whole thing. The sad thing is with the news, it just takes one idiot to ruin it for everybody.
True.
One idiot. This isn't everybody that did this. This is one idiot. Right. There's other words, but I'm not going to use them on the air. But anyway, hey, Karen, like we were saying a couple of minutes ago, before we go, one last question we have for you, Karen. We were all talking about the T-shirt. What's that T-shirt? Talk about that T-shirt.
It's my Patrick Henry Patriots T-shirt.
That doesn't look like it was one of these shirts that was made like, last year, kind of a retro thing. I mean, that looks definitely out of about 1979.
Yeah,
no, it's actually not. It's not that old. It's I got it in not long after I started at the Union Tribune in 1990. I started in 96. I think I got it 1999. I bought it at Keel's grocery store there in San Carlos. But no, because this isn't even the original Patriot symbol that we had when I was going to school there back in never mind when, the dinosaur age. But this I used to wear this on Friday nights when I was in the Union Tribune sports department. I wore it every Friday night when I was taking phone calls from people calling in their scores. Adam, I think you called me.
I did. I called you a few times.
So those were, great memories I have. Those were really fun times working in the sports department, obviously at the Daily Californian for many years before the Union Tribune. But no, I wore this because I wanted you guys to know that, I've got my spirited high school days always in my mind. Those were great times for me too. I'm very proud to be a local.
Well, Karen Pearlman from the San Diego Union Tribune, you always do such a great job covering East County. Do you mind coming back with us in a couple of weeks, catching up?
I can't wait. Let me come back. When can I come back next?
How about 2 weeks? We want to have you about every other week. We'd love to catch up with you.
I have a feeling there'll be some news. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we don't know.
Something's going to happen in the next 2 weeks.
There will be.
This is a sports show, so as long as you don't mind me adding my, city council and school.
That's one of the things that we love about you here in East County, and as Justin, and I hope I say his last name right. Shafley likes to say, you are fair and balanced right down the middle. There's no, here or there, and with your coverage.
Well, Bill Dickens taught me to be that way.
Yeah.
Yes. And Karen, just so everybody knows, Bill Dickens was basically the first boss for most of us here. God bless him. Just a great guy.
I mean, forever.
I absolutely agree with what Huerta Gary is saying right now about R.I.P. Bill Dickens, because Bill Dickens, of course, along with Moni, helped start this website. But Bill, he was just such a great boss, and God bless him. He was so good to all of us, and
I wouldn't be where I am without him, for sure. I would not be covering news at the Union Tribune without Bill Dickens.
I wish I could channel his thoughts about now on this whole thing, this whole story that you couldn't 2020. You couldn't make the story up.
How about the rockin'?
Yes. The booty rock.
The booty rock.
Yeah. You couldn't make up 2020 if you tried. I'd like to hear what Bill had to say about all that's gone on Or maybe I don't want to hear what Bill has to say, but
you may know.
Oh,
that
he'd sit there in his in his recliner at the house, and he'd say, "Oh boy, here we go again," or something like that, you know.
He'd find a way to spin it that would make it interesting for people. Like that guy could make the most boring any sport game into something that you wanted to read that you didn't want to miss, which is like really special because there were plenty of 0-0 girls soccer games.
And I'll kind of leave it on this, Steve. I'll let you get us out of here. But if you guys remember during the baseball strike, I think we might have all been around when this happened during the baseball strike, and we had to find things to write about without professional baseball. And you know, one column was like, "What happened on this day?" Kind of like you see now in the UT. And Bill, you made me go grab like bowling sheets out of the bowling alley and write it.
Yeah. Well, you can do anything.
We had to write some crazy stories during the baseball strike.
Oh, yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that yeah.
Well, listen, hey, once again, for Adam Paul from EC Preps and for Moan Scott from EastCountySports.com, who always puts this show together. And most of all, want to thank our special guest, Karen Pearlman, East County reporter for the San Diego Union Tribune. And Karen, we'll look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks back on the show with us.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward and counting down the days already.
We are too. And thanks so much to everybody for listening, and have a good night.
Good night, everyone.